A new Louisiana law requiring a display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom is drawing heavy criticism from Democrats and the mainstream media.
One of the dumbest waste of time I've ever seen in my life. This is book burner talking points. All right, these people want to burn books, take them out of libraries.
I think what he is banking on is that this sort of reactive, very partisan Supreme Court will overturn precedent and say, now this is okay. And we should be very afraid of that because we're now in upside down world.
Jeff Landry is the Republican governor of Louisiana who signed the first of its kind legislation into law this week, and he joins us now exclusively for his first interview since signing that into law. Governor, great to have you here. Thanks for being here. First up, you hear you've heard the criticism. It seems to be pouring in. Was it still the right thing to do?
I mean, I didn't know that living the Ten Commandments is a bad way to live life. I didn't know that it was so vile to obey the Ten Commandments. I think that speaks volumes about how eroded this country has become. I mean, look, this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And every time we steer away from that, we have problems in our nation. I mean, right now, schools basically treat kids like critters. And yet the Ten Commandments is something bad to put in schools. It's amazing to me. It really is.
So I have so much to get to here. But so for those listening right now, they're wondering, what's the goal? Because it's not as if this is going to be taught in every school and classroom. This is just being displayed on the walls. So my question to you is, how is this going to improve the school environment and the performance of kids in those schools? When, Governor, I pull up the report cards of these public schools, and Louisiana is struggling. I mean, it is at the bottom of the country. The education system is failing these kids. I mean, Louisiana's 44th in math and reading. So is this going to help what is a very big problem in Louisiana?
Look, I think it's part and parcel for helping kids anywhere around the country if other states followed our suits. But at the same time that we signed that bill into law, we signed a string of others. I signed 20 bills, including this one, to reform Louisiana schools. Look, 20 years ago, the state of Florida had the same statistics that you just rattled off that Louisiana now has. They went through a number of educational reforms. We took up some of the things that many of those states like Florida have done, and we signed those into law. We just believe that displaying historical documents, especially something that is as important as the Ten Commandments. Look, when the Supreme Court meets, the doors of the Supreme Court on the backside have the Ten Commandments. Moses faces the U.S. Speaker of the House in the House chamber. He is the original giver of law. Most of our laws in this country are founded on the Ten Commandments. What's the big problem, Sandra? That's the part that I don't understand.
Oh, wait, I'm just challenging you just to get your response. It's not my take on the situation, but you know that
I know.
Yeah, no. So, Governor, I want to make sure I get both sides in here because this is really important, and you're doing something that's clearly getting a lot of attention and it's getting a lot of reaction. And to your point about you becoming the 11th state to pass universal school choice, that is huge too. I want to get to that. But first, these are the groups who say they are against and one that says they're for the displays of the Ten Commandments in the schools. Listen.
This law is a prime example of Christian nationalism.
We're certainly suggesting to them, if not, in fact, even endorsing a particular religion in the classroom, and that we find to be violative of both the Constitution and the First Amendment.
There is no censorship. There's no forced religion. There is no imposing. There's no public expenses.
So the latter voice was Gene Mills, president of Louisiana Family Forum. Add to it a second voice who's in favor of it, and that's the former President Donald Trump. He actually posted this, Governor, on his Truth Social. I love the Ten Commandments in public schools, private schools, many other places for that matter. Read it. How can we as a nation go wrong? This may be, in fact, the first major step in the revival of religion, which is desperately needed in our country. Bring back TTC MAGA 2024. However, Randy Weingartner has weighed in. She says the folks who manufacture controversies of public education are also the ones trying to privatize schools and demolish the separation of church versus state. Now, on to school choice, Governor. This is an incredible message from Condoleezza Rice. I want our viewers to listen, and I'll get your thoughts on the other side.
If you're really wealthy, you will send your kids to private schools. So who's stuck in failing neighborhood schools? Poor kids. So how can you say you're for civil rights? How can you say you're for the poor when you're condemning those children to not being able to read? By the time they're in third grade, they're never going to read.
Such an important message. And now Louisiana, the 11th state to pass universal school choice. How is this going to improve things, Governor?
Look, I think Condoleezza Rice makes my point. She says it very well. Look, at the end of the day, public schools are funded on the backs of taxpayers. Those taxpayers are parents, too. We want money to follow the child. The most important voice in a child's education are parents, and they should be in control. And the interesting thing, too, is, Sandra, is that in none of the other states that have engaged in this type of experiment has a public school closed. Let me repeat this. Not one state that has done the same thing that Louisiana did just this week and engaged in giving parents more control over their tax dollars and their child's education has a public school system in those states failed. So again, it's starting to become just old rhetoric. And at the end of the day, we're looking to lift kids. We're looking to educate kids, and we're looking to get back to the basics.
Well,
that's why we're putting the 10 Commandments back in schools.
Well, on that note, can I follow up on that? Because, just chatting amongst ourselves, and we've seen a lot of debates out there. Like I said, you've really got a conversation going here, Governor. Is there checks and balances on this? I mean, do you have people who are going to go walk into all the public schools and make sure they've got the 10 Commandments? Do you expect the schools to follow through on this? And if they don't, are they punished somehow? How does this work?
Oh, no, look, again, this just says that if someone donates, it's not mandatory that the schools go out there and purchase them. But if someone donates them, in fact, right after I signed the bill, I had a gentleman text me and say, I want to put up $10,000 to help support the printing of the 10 Commandments and other documents that we can put in those schools that we can offer to those schools. If he does so and we make them available, those schools can take them and then they can post them. And so, again, I think there are many schools in the state of Louisiana that are going to take advantage of this. Mm-hmm. And I think it is a step in a positive direction. It says that we understand where the foundation of laws are, and we are a nation of laws and not of men.
Okay. Let me just challenge you on this then. If someone in those schools comes from a different religion or background and they want their rules, their covenant, they want those up on the wall, can a group come in and make the case for that?
Well, it would have to make that case to the legislature, and it would have to meet the criteria of the statute. The interesting thing about the First Amendment, and I heard it in one of the comments that you played, is this separation of church and state. I challenge anyone who says that to go find me those words in the First Amendment. They don't exist. It's a metaphor that was breathed into the First Amendment by a liberal Supreme Court in the 1930s. And so, again, this nation, look at all of the documents, all of the founding documents of this nation were based upon Judeo-Christian principles. We've got it on our money. We've got it all over our Capitol. We have it in the Supreme Court. It is those that want to extract that out of the foundation of this country that really and truly want to create the chaos that ultimately is the demise of this nation.
I having spent so much time in Louisiana, I know faith is important to so many in that state. It clearly is to you as well, Governor. And we'll see where this goes, and we'll watch it. And we really appreciate you joining us as it has ignited quite the conversation in this country. Thank you so much, Governor.
Thank you, Sandra. Hope to see you for an LSU game.
Absolutely. Go Tigers. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Aisha?
All right.